Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, could the Electoral College dump Trump? 2016 year in review, and what can we look forward to in 2017? Stay tuned. Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by the Dean of Democratic Punditry, Sam Statland. Former President of the Montgomery County Republican Central Committee, Mark Uncapher. Media consultant, Jerry Cave, and political strategist, Susan Heltemes. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. For most of the 2016 presidential election campaign, the mainstream media opined smugly about the difficulty that any Republican candidate would have to win enough electoral college votes to secure the presidency. There was a wall, you see, a wall that favored Democrats. And it was a big blue wall in the Midwest that would foil even the most respected Republican candidate, and certainly one as disreputable as Donald Trump, a known huckster and vulgarian. But lo and behold, late into the night of November 8th, the chattering nabobs of negativism awakened to the realization that the blue wall was shattered by the Trumpian hordes of Republicans, and Donald Trump had secured 306 electoral college votes. Now, as the once respected, now suspected Electoral College gets ready to convene on December 19th, there are plentiful pleas of, please, sir, don't vote for Trump. He's not worthy to be president. Susan, one expert predicts that 20 electors will not vote for Trump. Is it possible that the Electoral College could dump Trump?
It isn't going to happen. They would have to get rid of 37 people, would have to change their vote to be there, and then it would throw it into the House of Representatives. And quite honestly, with the way the Republicans in the House have fallen behind Trump, no matter what they said in the primary, he'd get it anyway. So, and they'll never vote for Clinton, so it's over.
So why are there all these plentiful pleas? Why are the Hollywood elite coming out and making these, these ridiculous commercials?
Well, if you go back to the history, the way it was set up, it was there to seen as a check and balance, so that if a bad decision was made, they could change it.
But isn't it just another effort to delegitimize the Trump presidency?
You didn't let me finish. The Electoral College was supposed to be there to be able to change if a bad decision was made. 2.8 million people felt that this was not the right choice. So there is a thought that perhaps it should be done, but it's not going to happen. He is president. I don't think you have to worry about delegitimizing him, because he's going to do that himself.
So Jerry, Susan is very gracious in her concession that Trump will be president, but there are a lot of people that want the Electoral College to change. Why?
I don't know why they want to change it. I think it's fine the way it is, but I think what's more important is that we're talking about is the Democratic Party still hates Donald Trump, and they are staying on that. And the problem is they didn't just get beat by Donald Trump. They've gotten beaten the Congress, the Senate, the governor's mansions, the legislatures. They have gotten beaten all across the board, but they're focusing their hatred on Trump for two reasons. One, it's part of their demonization to delegitimize him. But the other thing is, which is bad for their party, is they have gone so far to the left and abandoned the blue-collar workforce and lost their constituency that they're, and wait a second,
you're getting ahead of yourself.
They're out of business. They need to go back to being a more centrist party.
That's in the next topic. Sam, you want to add anything to this?
Yes, I'm going to go back to a point that was made. So the Electoral College was set up as a check and balance, but what it did was it gave power to the smaller states. And historically, our Senate was not elected directly. Our senators were elected by
electors, essentially.
Right. And now there is a Republican president, House and Senate. So after the election, the opportunity to abolish the Electoral College is there and go to a direct popular vote.
And the irony is during the election, Donald Trump wanted to get rid of the Electoral College.
But the other part of that irony is that everyone professed that he had no chance of winning. Mm-hmm. All right, let's keep going because there's a lot to cover. Is there any doubt about what was the biggest political story of the year? But what is the story behind this story? Sam, did Trump win or did Hillary lose?
I think the American public won. Because the American public were given a choice between two diametrically opposite candidates, one who grew up in politics and approached everything from that venue and that point of view, and the other was a business person who looked at government and found it inefficient from a business point of view and wanted to make dramatic changes. And that went down to people who were very, very unhappy, who had been out of jobs for years in the Midwest, and people who felt left behind, the middle class that was losing its ability for the American dream. And even today, our youngsters, millenniums, feel that they cannot achieve the American dream. So a choice was made. You can call it a revolution if you wish. Maybe it is a revolution if we look back on this 10 years from now or 20 years from now, where we've been given the opportunity to erase what we had and start fresh again in the governance of this country.
Whether it was a revolution, it was certainly a surprise because, Mark, you and most of the mainstream members of your party found the president-elect almost repugnant. So how was he able to win?
Well, he certainly wasn't the first choice of a lot of Republicans. What's interesting is that there were, of the voters, both Republicans and Democrats, that didn't like either candidate, and surprise, surprise, there were quite a few. Those voters went for Trump by a margin of essentially 3-2, which supports what Sam said is if you didn't like both candidates, on balance, people voted for Trump.
And the Comey letter at the end made a difference.
Well, we'll find out. We'll see about that. I mean, Jerry, according to the Harvard Political Review, Democrats should stop degrading their opponents and start focusing on their voters. That's kind of what Sam was indicating as well. Is that the reason Trump won?
You don't have to go to Harvard to do that. You can be in elementary school and figure that out or run a lemonade stand. You have to take care of your constituents, clients, customers, whatever you want to call them. But both parties had ignored the blue-collar community for the last 30 years, and the Democratic Party was trying to win new constituents at the expense of their core constituency, and that cost them. And now I know why you call him the dean of punditry, because there wasn't much that man had to say a minute ago I didn't agree with.
I don't know if you've ever agreed with anybody on this show, Jared.
Maybe we can erase that part to not besmirch his reputation.
Sam is reconsidering what he said.
Susan, so what you're kind of hearing from Mark and from Jerry and even from Sam is that the Democratic Party's lost touch with a big core constituency.
And factor that with the fact that Democrats sometimes are lazy and don't go out and vote. I want to step back for just 1 second. This part about Democrats calling people names and being disparaging. Trump took that to a whole new level. But I think there was a Wall Street Journal article about the fact that in places like Wisconsin, Michigan, Iowa, they were union states, and the union members had the union as the focus of their life. It was their family. And when these jobs went away, they had nothing to fill this void. And they were there out in La La Land, and we didn't do a good job.
But doesn't that just underscore the fact that the Democratic Party in particular did not go after this core constituency?
No, Casey,
They
it goes
did,
to the
but
point.
not to the point that they should have.
Casey, it goes to the point.
Well, actually, I think
minute,
you're
the
wrong.
Republican Party is also
because I
guilty
think
of
I think when you analyze the Democratic Party, it's a party of splintered groups and minorities, and they like to play minority politics, and they ignored white voters in particular.
Well,
white
Casey,
voters are
blue-collar-
not welcome in the Democratic
No,
Party.
I think
Casey,
it goes
you're
beyond.
absolutely wrong, Casey.
Okay.
But
think so?
in ways, all of you are wrong. Going back to, you had a very, very unhappy population in this country that felt that they were left behind without.
What was that population?
Without
It
label.
was white voters.
Without,
It was
no, it wasn't.
blue-collar people. It
Wait a
didn't
second,
necessarily
but
mean
it
just
wasn't.
white people.
It wasn't.
look-
It was a broad, across the board election.
Yes, because for
Trump
instance,
won the election because he had the support of other than the white voters. That's what all that bobbling heads were talking about. That's what the Democrats were talking about. That's what the Republicans were talking about. You can't win with the plain old white old guys. There's not enough of them to get them elected. And they're right. So what happened? All of us, without label Democrat and Republican, decided we needed a change. And we have Donald Trump, who's going to be our next president. Now it's up to him to keep his campaign promises, so to speak.
We'll get
And
to
really,
help
we
us
work
all if
government.
he
We're going to
does.
get to that. Let's go to our next topic. According to Chris Cillizza of the Washington Post, Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party had the worst year in 2016. Susan, do you agree?
I don't know if it was the worst year. It wasn't a great year, but I think in the state of Maryland, we kept all our seats. Montgomery County is a winner, and that we have Chris Van Hollen now as the U.S. Senator. And, we had a tough year, but historically, 2018 should be good for Democrats because there is no way that Donald Trump can produce in 2 years the kind of things he says he's going to do.
Well,
and
just
that will help
remember one thing, Susan. A year ago, we were saying no way that Donald Trump could ever be president. Jerry, nationally, who had a really bad year? Who else?
Before I get to that part, I'm not part of that we. I was saying he was going to be elected. I'll tell you who had a horrible year and really catastrophic was the media. They cashed their last paycheck. They took all the excitement of this last election, got big ratings, turned it to revenues, cashed in. But CNN, MSNBC, their ratings have collapsed, and the problem is they were discovered to be violating their journalistic ethics. They were colluding with the Democratic Party. Their credibility was only 28% before the election. It's probably 8% now. It's down there with Congress. The media is
And what about
financially
Fox News?
and credibility is in terrible
All right,
shape.
Mark, who else had a bad year?
Well, I agree with the media. I think in balance, the Republicans had a great year, and I think that liberals had a bad year. This was a broad-based victory. Certainly, there wasn't an expectation that the Republicans would hold the Senate. It's interesting, there were 7 states where Obama won, where a Republican senator was running for re-election, and in each of those states, the Republican candidate for Senate did better than Donald Trump. So this was a victory more than just Trump. Trump certainly added to a Republican coalition, but it was also a broad-based victory for Republicans generally.
Sam, who else had a bad year this year?
The Nationals, because they didn't make it.
And they gave up their best pitching.
Yeah, they gave up their best.
They gave up their
They didn't
best
get the
pitching
closer. It's just been a
prospect.
terrible year.
So,
I
Sam,
think the biggest winner so far, unspoken winner so far.
let's talk about locally. Susan talked about the local elections. Who was the biggest winners locally?
Oh, I think the biggest winner in the hardest fought fight and the least expected to win because of the monies put into the campaign was Jamie Raskin. I think Jamie did a great job. I think it's a true example where the Democratic Party got behind him and supported him versus money coming in from other sources. I think Jamie was a big winner. I think the people of Maryland are a huge winner because we've elected Chris Van Hollen to U.S. Senate, who I hope 8 years or 12 years from now runs for president.
Susan, who was another big winner this year?
Robin Ficker.
Yeah.
Robin Ficker was a winner. He got the term limits through, and I saw him on Thursday at the Committee for Montgomery breakfast, and he was at the bottom of the escalator saying, "We did it, congratulations." And I put my hand back and I said, "I didn't vote for you, to leave me alone." And I was amazed at how many people said that to him. But in that room, he was gloating, and he was a winner. I hate to say
Well, he
it.
should be happy. Jerry, who else was a big winner locally?
All of the incumbents were big winners, and the semi-incumbents, the Chris Van Holles and the Rain Tax and Raskin. Everybody who was an incumbent was a winner in Maryland and the local area.
Mark.
Well, I was going to do with the same. If you left, you haven't left me with much because you're right. Those not much changed in Maryland except for the passage of the term limits referendum.
Well, you guys really shocked me because one of the biggest winners in the state was our governor. He passed legislation that was meaningful. He's got the highest rating of any Maryland governor in years and in
And
history.
he didn't endorse Trump. That made him
Didn't
an even
endorse
bigger
Trump.
winner.
And I think you'll see his legislation coming down the pike in the next couple of years will do more and more to benefit our citizens.
You know,
Statland's starting to scare me. I'm starting to question my values when I find myself trying to keep up with the dean of punditry, Sam Statland. He's right on that one too.
So, well, this is an interesting question, Mark, and Sam brought this, and Susan brought this up. Actually, will the fact that Larry Hogan didn't endorse Trump help him or hurt him 2 years from now?
I think he'll probably be separated from Trump, whatever happens with Trump, and be the sort of rise and fall on that. What's interesting is that as vindictive as Trump seemed to be, he really seems to have reached out to a broad base of, frankly, some very orthodox conservatives and moderates within the party. So I think, I know Jerry was ready to set up the guillotines in front of the House caucus for the speaker, but I think on balance he's focused on government, and I think that's kind of kept things separate.
What's great about Trump is he's not Irish. You know, Irish people, like, we love our grudges and everything, and he ain't got them. His stagecraft in that, bringing Romney in and all of those people, is fantastic. And I have heard.
And it's all an act.
I think he embarrassed Romney.
No,
I think that was terrible.
I think
he should have left
Romney
alone.
embarrassed himself. I will tell you, from people who have done business with Donald Trump, he will get into an unbelievable contest on a deal, and 5 years later call him up and want to do another one. And they go, well, that was awful. It doesn't register with him. I don't think the man holds grudges.
Well, Sylvester Stallone came to see him yesterday, and Donald Trump supposedly offered him to be the head of the NEA.
Why don't we talk about what we know has happened and not speculation?
Sylvester
More
Stallone.
fake news.
No,
Excuse me a second.
Let's talk about something that.
Can we get back to the governor for a second? I don't
go
think that what he did with Trump will have any bearing on whether he gets elected or not.
Oh my gosh,
What'll
I
have
agree with
bearing
Sam
is how well he does in the next legislative session and the one after that.
No, I think it will, and I said that months ago, because for moderate Democrats who kind of like Hogan and they have any bit of a conscience, they're going to say, and he was strong enough to oppose Trump. I like that.
Well, I'll tell you. I want to before we go to break. We have about a minute left. I want to talk about one group of people who had a very bad year in Montgomery County, and that's the county council, because there are 4 members of the county council who will not be running for re-election, and they had a bad year because of just what you said, Robin Ficker's term limit initiative.
I want to tell you something. There's somebody else that had a really bad year locally, and it is all the local voters in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. Because what they have done is, this is a one-industry town, federal government, and they have all voted senators and all but one congressperson for the minority party that has very little voice in a new administration. They made a big mistake.
All right, well, Jerry, you got the last word. When we come back from this short break, our panel will give predictions for the years ahead, for the year ahead. Back. The election of Donald J. Trump as president has upset many routine assumptions about life in America. Susan, you have just said that Trump's going to be sworn in as president of the United States. Are you happy about that?
No. If he actually carries through, and one never knows what he really stood for, but the draconian things he was talking about scare me. It frightens me that he doesn't believe in climate change. His thoughts about public education bother me. His attitude towards NATO is deplorable. His phone call to Taiwan, thank you, Bob Dole, was awful. And his relationships and the relationships of those around him with Russia are terrible. And today, Senator Comey came out and said, yes, indeed, it was Russian hacking. President Obama at his last press conference said today, we will deal with Russia. And, you know, he made it quite clear he still is president.
But President Obama said one more thing.
To look forward to. Is that what you're
No,
saying?
I'm not.
President Obama said one more thing in his news conference today. He said there's a huge difference in the rhetoric that takes place running for office
And governing.
and governing, and the feeling and the importance of the office when you get into the Oval Office. And he feels that a lot of things said during the election will moderate, will ebb.
Trump has
We'll
already
find out.
said that was
Wait a
during
Wait a minute,
the
I want to go
campaign,
to
it
Jerry.
doesn't matter.
Jerry, do you know what 2017 is in the Chinese year?
You stumped me on that one,
It
brother.
is-
Illuminate me.
It is the year of the rooster. So is that a good sign for the Trump administration?
It is, because he is waking everybody up. We're going to have a new day, and Donald Trump is going to be very successful. And the reason is he is already being successful, but he has the economic, political, and military leverage to get done what he needs to get done. It really is so easy a caveman can do it, because this man has the will to do that.
Hey, Mark, we've heard a lot. Sam just alluded to the fact that there's a difference between campaigning and governing. Will Donald Trump be able to accomplish half the things that he promised during the campaign?
I mean, I think that he set out a fairly specific agenda on a couple of issues, certainly on immigration, on repealing Obamacare, and on economic issues, on trade and trade promotion. And I think it's wise that he's kind of picked a couple of areas. He sometimes he's not interested in farming. Nobody knows what his policy is on a variety of issues. He has focused on some very specific areas, and I think that's what we'll see him working with Congress to deliver on.
The biggest
Sam,
issue
I want
he's
to
going to have.
I want to talk to you, and it's about the biggest issue he has.
The biggest issue
Affordable
he has
Care
is
Act.
this, is that there's a heck of a difference between running a company as a CEO of a company and pointing to staff and say, this will happen, make it happen, versus being in government and dealing with the bureaucracy.
And the
dealing-
Constitution.
and Constitution and rules and regulations, where you can't say, make it happen. Now, a presidential edict is one thing, and the president obviously can make certain things happen. But when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, moving the inertia of government is not going to be as rapid as he thinks it's going to be, and he's going to have to adjust.
That you're probably absolutely right. But let's talk about the one key issue, and this is your area of expertise, the Affordable Care Act. What's going to happen with the Affordable Care Act? Because many people are very dissatisfied from the fact that their premiums are skyrocketing, and they are unaffordable for the middle class. The middle class is getting crushed by this thing.
If the political rhetoric took place today and the Affordable Care Act was abolished, 340,000 people in Maryland, 5.2% of the population, would lose all of their health insurance.
That's not going to happen.
In
Sam.
Virginia, wait a second, in
You know
Virginia,
that's not going to happen.
similar number, 4.2%.
Okay.
And in
Can
the
some
district,
time
only
talk about the rest of us
19,000.
that are getting killed by this
Just
thing?
a second, 2.4%. And even with the premium rate increases, the number of people covered by the Affordable Care Act this year, 2017 renewal, will be greater. So,
Sam,
It's more than
it's-
20
Sam,
million
but Sam,
people.
Sam, I would
So-
point to the fact that Trump has put in getting the doctor he's put in charge, who's Congressman Tom Price, who's been very involved in these issues, is a measure of just how serious he is taking the details of coming up with a plan that repeals and replaces Obamacare.
And cut all
The
women's health
question
rights,
is-
though, is what he
question-
wants to
not
Let's stay
do.
focused on what
rights.
guys,
No,
the question
not rights.
is what is the repair going to be?
Well,
My vision
That's
of a
why we
repair.
asked Sam. He knows that.
Well,
My-
Ryan says get rid of it, Trump, and we'll
Look,
wait
we're not-
3
I'm
years.
not worried
It's-
about.
it's-
I don't care
you
about
can't
all the
you
rhetoric.
can't
What I
just-
care about is the practical result, and the practical result is, which no one wants to hear, on either side of the aisle, is a universal health care system where the Congress and the Senate and where the three divisions of
payer.
government, the presidency, the
payer.
judiciary,
Single payer.
all
Why is
come
that the only solution, Sam?
because each pillar of coverage, whether it's private, whether it's the Affordable Care Act, whether it's all of the group that's around, has about a 25% profit margin in it. Plus all of the overhead and administrative costs of running separate programs. So the one thing you could do for cost efficiency is to have one form of administration, one form of care. And everybody looks at Medicare as being the solution. Universal Medicare, it shouldn't be universal Medicare. I'll really shock you guys. It should be universal Medicaid. Why? Because Medicaid right now is the best way of delivering health care, and it also includes long-term care coverage.
That's going to stratify people even more.
Well, of course it will, but that's going to be the ultimate solution, because if you have a program designed by the insurance industry, of which I'm a part of, somewhere along the line we didn't get the rates right. Somewhere along the line, government didn't get the rates right in determining what the proper cost of coverage should have been long ago, and the administration of it is scattered, and it's not, the Affordable Care Act is not does not apply equally in every state.
Look, I don't want this. I don't want to get bogged. I mean, the rest of the show given over to the Affordable Care Act. We got other things to talk about. One of which is whether or not, and you brought this up, Susan, about the hacking by Russians, and whether or not this is a serious issue, and how that's going to affect the Trump presidency. Mark, I want to go with you.
Well, I think it's fascinating how, from about 2 weeks ago, where the coordinator of intelligence said he wasn't sure it's Russian, and then the CIA says that the RNC was hacked, but the RNC said it wasn't hacked. I think we got to wait to see, in a less politically charged environment, what exactly the facts are.
All right, unfortunately, we're out of time. The hard break. We got to stay tuned for parting shots.
Today, Comey, everybody came out and said it was the Russians.
Yeah, everybody said it
The
was
day
the
they said it.
All right, so big surprise. We talked too much during that last segment. So guess what? Here's our parting shot. We wish you a Merry Christmas
and a Happy New Year.
For 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken. Thank you for tuning in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show.